Hello and welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires we call the internets is Joe Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
Is Jen here?
No.
Oh, well, good, because now I'm going to help. I'm trying to get wound up for Festivus. I just don't feel it. It's a fake holiday like all the rest of them. But I'm going to try by singing Cory's very favorite Christmas song.
Oh, for the love of God.
Right. The spirit's up. We're here tonight. And that's enough. Simply having a wonderful Christmas time. Simply having a wonderful Christmas time. And I believe you can just sound loop that for another 27 times, because that's pretty much the whole song.
About a day and a half.
Simply having wonderful Christmas time. Children sing their song. They practice all year long. Simply having wonderful Christmas time. Okay, even I'm sick of it by now.
There was one year I was working somewhere and someone had a little, one of those things that plays Christmas music.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a desk decoration.
Oh, yeah.
And that was the song on it. And it was one of those where I don't listen to a lot of Christmas music because I don't listen to the radio. So I don't have to put up with Christmas music. Except now at the current part-time job, the residents want to hear Christmas music pretty much from beginning of November on.
Well, it's easy. Just leave 108 on.
No, they have a channel on the satellite TV that plays Christmas music. And then they will watch all the terrible Christmas movies that on the Hallmark channel. And all of them have one of three plots. But anyway, back to the and this thing, at first it's like, what is that song? I know that song. And then on day 2, it's like, oh crap, that's that terrible Paul McCartney song. And then on day 3, it's like, oh, I wish that thing would turn off. And by day 4, I'm wheeling my chair over to her desk going, that thing is going to die soon. I may have to bring in an axe to kill it, but that thing is going to die soon. Oh, but that's a great song. No, it's not. By the 5th day, that is the worst song ever recorded by anyone ever.
Worst song ever.
And then the Christmas movies on Hallmark Channel are all, says somebody hates Christmas. And the family has to bring them out of it. Or the family is separated on Christmas. Will there be a Christmas miracle to bring them together? Or this person's really sad on Christmas. Will there be a Christmas miracle?
Ghostbusters. Oh, I'm sorry. I got a Hot Wheel chase going. Batmobile and Ghostbusters are chasing the Christine car from Stephen King's movie.
Joe, can I spoil all of those Christmas movies with a little bit of reality?
You should, because I will probably never, ever watch any of them.
There is no such thing as a Christmas miracle, okay? If there was a Christmas miracle, I wouldn't have been stranded at my job December 24th and have to sleep at a Shinder's because there were no cabs running because it was after 9 o'clock on Christmas Eve. Now, granted, this was like the early 90s, but I go out to my car and I turn the key and it doesn't even click. Nothing happens. And everybody had gone home already. Anybody I knew was with their family, and this was before cell phones, so I call a cab to take me home. Nope, no cabs running until 6 in the morning. I had to call the downtown store and say, looks like I'm trapped here. And they went, okay, you don't need to turn on the alarm. Now, thankfully, even back then, I kept a pillow and a blanket and stuff in my car, but I got to sleep at a Shinder's all night before I could get a cab to take me home on Christmas. Then I had to get a cab to bring me back the day after Christmas.
Cory, I don't know what you're complaining about. Marriage is like a coffin, and each kid's another frickin' nail.
And that's why I'm not married.
That's why he's not married.
I get to live forever.
Oh, boy. I don't know. After all the complaints you just did, who wants to live that long?
Well, there is that.
Think on sexy thoughts. Folks, that was called a run-in.
Not a big fan of the Christmas.
Nope. However, we did go to the Holiday Geek Expo.
Why, yes, we did.
And I got to admit, I had originally planned just to call in sick and go on Saturday. Unfortunately, the previous Wednesday, I was actually sick. So I figure the way our job works, or at least TSA does, boy, you take 2 sick days in a week, ooh, you're doomed. It's really weird the way they count sick times, because it's like if say you had a cold all week and you came in, called in sick Monday, and you called in sick Friday. That's 2 separate sick calls. Where if you had called in and said, okay, I'm going to take Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off, they wouldn't count that as 3. It's just 1 incident. So even if you came in, or you were sick Monday, came in Tuesday, worked Wednesday, it would still be 1 incident. But if you called in sick again Wednesday, again, 2 incidents. And of course, they pay somebody a lot of taxpayer dollars to sit there and run different spreadsheets to discover, hey, look at that. Ryder's taken 5 sick days in 6 months. We better have a interest-based discussion. Which usually for me goes like this. Joe, you've been taking a lot of sick days and we've noticed a pattern. Is there anything we can do for it? To which I usually reply, yeah, could you cure rheumatoid arthritis and diabetes? I'll be fine. But never mind.
We were at the Holiday Geek Expo.
Yes.
And we worked out a lot of the bugs we had with recording on my laptop away from home.
And the other thing there were not a ton of people there, although it was pretty steady.
Yes, it was steady. It was more like a craft show than really a Comic-Con. And they had a lot of people there who set up at a lot of the local cons. Our friend Scott Gallatin was there. Dan was there. They had one person whose story I found interesting. She had tons of video games and books and DVDs. And she was wearing a narwhal costume.
Narwhal sitting in the ocean, causing a commotion because they are so awesome.
First off,
they're the Jedi of the sea. Stop Cthulhu from eating ye. I'm telling you, I do miss the singing. It brings a lot.
Well, you'll probably be able to do a lot of singing.
I'll use every song in existence. So just like the sound bites, they'll be gone.
Oh, God. So first off, I was surprised that someone showed up to vend in a costume. And second, a narwhal costume? She was blowing out CDs, actually blowing out DVDs and Blu-rays and video games and books. And basically her pitch was the same as yours when you're doing the charity booth. It was, get this stuff out of my house before I have to throw it away. She held up one thing and it's like, yeah, I have 3 copies of that movie. Yeah, but this one's a 4th.
Corey, it's time. I'm going to interrupt here with Ask the Strode.
You mean you're not interrupting me 90% of the time anyway?
No. This one is Ask the Strode, the most popular feature on this show. Well, no, actually, Freaking and Geeking is. But, Corey?
Yes?
Do you know how to read?
Yes.
Do you have opinions?
Yes.
Do you like free books?
Yes.
Okay, mark your calendars for Saturday, December 19th. Cozy up to your laptop, go to www.inkshares.com, read and write reviews on currently funding projects on Inkshares. Each review earns you a chance to win a prize. They've got a sword and laser contest winners package where you get print copies of 6 of the winning books from the Swords and Laser Inkshare contest, hence the Swords and Laser contest prize package. There's a Nerdist contest winners package, which prints copies of the 5 winning books from the Nerdist Inkshares contest, an immediate pre-order of the book of their choice for 5 winners, and or $30 in Inkshare credits. The reviews end 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can do it from 6 to 8. JF debut, and Paul Inman of the Right Brain podcast will be hosting a video live stream filled with author interviews, review readings, and live announcements of prize winners. I mention this because across from us and next to Dan, I got a chance to talk to A.C. Weston, and she has a book in this contest called She Is the End. And I told her I would actually mention it here on this here podcast. Although we
actually had her on the podcast a while back.
Yeah, and we had actually shut everything up because we had places to go and things to eat before we, if I'd have known what she was doing, I would say, well, come on over, give me a 5-second blitz on the podcast here.
You're the one who interviewed her.
Yeah. So go to inkshares.com try that again. Go to www.inkshares.com/she-is-the-end. And mention, if she wins, mention that you heard it here twice.
And if you don't want to do it that way, you could just go to Inkshares and put in She Is the End, and it will pop up right there, too.
That's a lot of dashes. So she was
we
there.
We periscoped.
Well, yeah, which I had no idea what the hell it was until, here I'm sitting at work, and I got to admit it was a slow day, so I did get, we were Facebook messaging, and then I heard about this Periscope here thing, and I was like, what the heck is Strode up to now?
It's live video it's through Twitter. It's Twitter's live video because remember when WWE had Tout and they were pushing Tout and they bought Tout with all the live video and stuff and no one cared? Well, Twitter did it and people kind of care a little. Sort of. A little.
Well, you mentioned somebody was actually watching it.
We had at 1.9 people, so we were a big hit. I downloaded Periscope because there were all these wrestlers using it, and they were talking about it all the time on Howard Stern as if it was this big deal. And I'm going to turn it on right now. So the people I follow on Twitter and the people I'm friends with on the Face Stab and the Instabook and all that, no one you are following is live right now.
Yeah.
It's the hot video. Actually, a while back, Chris Gore, who used to be the publisher of Film Threat magazine, live filmed a hot Asian girl eats In-N-Out hamburger.
Oh man!
So it's not like the content is scintillating, but it's his girlfriend, her first time at In-N-Out Burger. But we are on the Periscope every so often when we're going to be doing conventions and stuff, and we're going to be doing more conventions. We had a lot of fun there.
Butch came.
I did an entire podcast with Butch the day before.
Neat.
And we did another secret podcast the next day.
Secret. Oh, secret.
In case one of us gets hit by a banana truck.
Or catches the plague.
No, you got to be on the show if you catch a plague. I can edit out the coughing.
Oh, I coughed on purpose.
I know, but we can still edit it out.
That don't matter.
Okay.
Listen.
No, you have to be on the show if you have the plague. You're allowed out of the show if you get hit by a banana truck, or you have to work.
I did. Well, no, I could.
You are not allowed to. Those are the only reasons you're allowed to take a day off.
If I could use a cell phone, I could call in. I could do a podcast from work.
Yes, you could, and then you'd get fired for not doing your job.
Oh, you. This is a government job. Remember. No, different. I'll save it maybe for next week.
So we had a lot of fun. We're going to be hitting some more conventions. We'll have some announcements soon. More than just the normal SpringCon and FallCon, too.
Did you buy anything at the Holiday Geek Expo?
Yes, I bought
didn't, which is rare for me, but I didn't.
I bought some DVDs. I bought some video games. I bought Elder Scrolls V. And I said, well, eventually at some point I will have time for video games. And the woman who sold it to me said, well, once you start playing this is the only video game you ever need. And I had heard it's a role-playing game that isn't completely linear It just sort of creates a world, and yes, there is a story, but it's so customizable. There are bajillions of side stories. I was reading about one person who has been playing the game for over 500 hours and is avoiding the main story.
Huh.
And it's like, okay, according to the game, I'm like 20% done with the main story, and I've played for 500 hours. I doubt I will do that. For me, putting aside an hour and a half to watch the season finale of Doctor Who was an effort. Because we are cranking out the podcast, man. We are cranking them out. The other thing, the comic news
we're not done with our day yet.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Because afterwards, when we decided we had we did our podcast, we had a Burger King lunch, which, enough said,
was exactly what it would be.
No, yeah, well, pretty much. And then we decided to bolt, and we went to visit two local comic stores. The first one was down it's probably one of my favorite comic stores, is Cedar Cliff Collectibles, just because he's got the store piled floor to ceiling.
It's a goddamn mess. This shop's a goddamn mess.
But the thing is there are things selling, because I go there and I'm thinking I might pick up the thing I saw last time we visited. It's gone. The big, huge tub he had of Hot Wheels was now just a little tub of Hot Wheels. And, of course, our favorite was to always dig through the graphic novels. And again, I didn't buy anything. But, Cory, you left with quite a pile of graphic novels there.
No, I just bought 4.
Oh, share it.
Gosh, they're in the other room. But I know I bought the Jackpot trade paperback, which was one of the characters introduced when Spider-Man went weekly. And there was a female superhero called Jackpot that they hinted quite heavily was Mary Jane Watson, and we found out that she wasn't. But it was still interesting, and I never did buy the miniseries. So I thought, I'll pick it up, see if the miniseries was any good. I picked up a book that I'd actually been looking for a while, Tales from the Marvel Vault, which was a series of stories that either were started and then the series was canceled, so it stopped. Inventory stories that they never used and can't use now. There's a Nomad story that they can't use because Nomad is dead. And
we don't know that for sure after Secret Wars.
Well, yeah, but in the Marvel universe that we knew when they published this book, they pretty much said, yeah, he was killed in the Captain America story, dead. So, And there was also a Steve Ditko story, scripted and inked by Carl Kessel, which was the first meeting of the Human Torch and the Hulk. And it was late 80s Ditko, but Ditko doing superhero stuff. And it was actually, the plot was by Jack C. Harris, who used to be an editor at DC. And then Carl Kessel came in years later to script it and ink the pencils. And it's a very strange story, but a lot of fun to read because it's Ditko. And one of the things I like is that he's got a lot of the hardcovers that Marvel was putting out in the mid-2000s, where it's, rather than do a trade paperback of this Thor story from the 70s, let's put out a $20 hardcover of it. So there was a lot of that stuff. He had a lot of the last batch of DC DC archives. And I was flipping through, it's like, yeah, I've got all of these. He used to have a lot of the omnibuses when they would be put on the liquidation list for I don't know. Well, I got the Atlantis Attacks and Evolutionary War omnibuses for I think they were $15 each. But Marvel's not doing a lot of that anymore, so he had the Roger Stern Spider-Man omnibus, but it was only discounted $25, and I can get that cheaper online if I want it. And the West Coast Avengers, and it was only discounted $30. So, those are ones that, I'd buy them if they were half price or less.
What was the one that they gave you an odd price on? I didn't get a chance to see that.
There was a book that had no price on it at all, that was in with the discount books. And it was the history of black and white comics magazines. And I looked through it, and it was printed in like 2005. And it was just an index. It had some historical stuff, and then it had an index of, okay, this publisher put these out, and it would go through each one. And, it was one of those scholarly books. Do you remember McFarlane and Company used to put out a lot of scholarly nerd books?
Oh, yeah. I've seen them for like Hogan's Heroes, Space 1999. I got one on eBay on WKRP. They're not, I think that Dave Sim Conversations book I mentioned last podcast is like that. It's not published through regular publishing or comic related people, but rather university of whomever.
Right. And a lot of them are, this is this person's senior, master's thesis. And so they're very so-called scholarly. They are heavily footnoted. And when I took it up, I said, I can't find a price on this thing. Take it up. And he said, I said, there's no price on it. And he starts looking, and I said, you know what? It was in your discount trade paperbacks. It's worth $10 to me. And he's looking online and looking at this and looking at that. And after about 5 minutes, he says, yeah, it looks like it's $45. I says, not worth $45 to me. Ring me up without it.
Yeah.
And I know when I go back, it'll still be in that box.
Oh, probably.
And it'll probably have a $45 price sticker on it.
I'm going to Google it while you talk. Well, the next shop we hit was Hot Comics Richfield. And
yes.
We say hit because Cory hit it for the most time because Butch and I had to blitz and go find a restroom. And I think that's...
Yeah, you guys were gone most of the time.
We were debating not coming back.
Oh, thanks.
But, we thought, you left your soda in the back seat. You might as well come back and get you.
Well, and, it's quite a long way to get to my car.
We don't care about that. It's in the same hemisphere.
See the love I get, folks. See why every episode, I'm getting verbally beat up.
But
I don't know
you know why we came back.
I know.
Well, because you fed us pumpkin bread.
Okay.
Did this?
I bring the baked goods to the convention.
He brings the baked goods, and we are on it.
And because we've been abandoned, I did not bring any hooch.
No
booze. And my problem with Hot Comics is, when I go to a comic shop, I'm pretty much a bottom feeder. And their discount racks are the same as they were a year ago. So I've already picked them over. There wasn't a lot there that I went, oh, I haven't seen this. So not a lot at the Hot Comics in Richfield?
Yeah, that's when we had. I gotta say, Hot Comics really needs a good plumbing of some of their back issues. Maybe just, again, go through, pick out ones that don't necessarily need to be liquidated at 70% off, but, a lot of current stuff. They had some nice stuff up on the wall, but, I think they were doing that during a Black Friday event. They were doing like half price. Unless it was over $15, then it was 20% off, which is actually pretty fair. I'd have gone the other way. Anything under $20 is 70% off. Just blow that stuff out. Because that's the type of stuff you bring to cons and just you got to plumb out of your system.
And I do think a lot of it is that nobody's buying back issues anymore.
Yeah.
It's not like when I was at Shinder's, you could tell most people had this is how much I spend every week. Because if it was a light week, they'd dig through the back issues for stuff. Now, you would get the people who'd come in and they were digging through back issues without buying new stuff. But it was generally your people who came in, they'd pick up their new stuff, and then if they had money left, they'd dig through the back issues. So you could always tell if it was a big week, we're not going to sell a lot of back issues. Then again, our back issue sales were 10% of new issue sales. By the time you had the shop, I think the dynamic was already changed. And I think you've said that your back issues were, what, 5%?
No. Well, it varied. I mean, because when we first started, they were about 10%. And then when we split graphic novels off and expanded that, then it kind of dropped to 5%.
I think graphic novels have really hurt the back issue market. The other thing that's hurt the back issue market, in my opinion, is digital, because you can't miss a comic anymore because they're pretty much all, I wasn't able to get Squirrel Girl #1. Oh, look, here it is. It's on Comixology, and if I wait 6 months, it'll be on Marvel Unlimited. Yeah, I'll buy it online.
What was the name of that book again?
Squirrel Girl?
No, the one you had to put back because it was too expensive.
Oh,
History of Black and White Comics?
Yes, Black and White magazines.
Magazine. Okay, I cannot find it anywhere.
Black and White horror magazines or Black and White comic magazines. Something
Or
like
they
that.
have like a zombie in the cover?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, $55 on Amazon.
Oh.
So, not a bad price, but again, not what you're looking for.
No, because, and when was it printed?
2013.
I thought it was much older than that.
Yeah. A history and catalog, yeah. So, and McFarlane still listed new in their
Well, then maybe somebody just
catalog.
dumped it in the cheapy bin.
Yeah, I always had that happen every so often. I mean, one thing that drove me crazy at the Holiday Geek Expo is a lot of people didn't have things priced. And,
yeah, I know.
And my attitude, unless I really, really, really want it, and at the time I really, really, really didn't, was to just, whatever, flip back. And they could have countered that in two ways. They could have said, if they see me handle something, well, I'm asking $20 for that, which is, again, opening salvo, rather than, how much is this? What are you asking for this? Or what do you want for this? Or whatever. Most of the time I just moved on because, again, I wasn't there really to spend money. I was just there to hang and see what it was like. So, again, if you're not going to price things, you better be ready to engage people. And I really dislike that. That happens not so much at my shop because I really priced the hell out of things, but you always had to watch because somebody would, slip something out of a bag or take that $10 comic, slip it into a bag with $1.99 on it or whatever.
Yeah.
So, it happened. And if that's how you got to make your living, whatever.
One of the things that I noticed at this, and again, I'm going to give advice as someone who has run conventions. I've been at conventions. I've worked conventions.
Hell, you've even podcasted at them.
Damn right. I'm going around with the cell phone, and I would tell people, hey, you know what? We're broadcasting live video. And there were some people who were like, hey, you know what? I've got this, I've got this, I've got this. This is the price, this is this, come on down, this is where we are, this is my website. And there were some people who were like, hi, Internet. And that was it. If you're going to be at a convention and you want to make money, you better be shaking babies and kissing hands. You got to be selling. You can't just sit and stare at your shoes and then, I didn't make any money. Well, it's you were hiding behind your table and staring at your shoes, or you were, reading a comic book or whatever. People are going, they're just looking at stuff. You better engage them or they're going to move on. And there was, it kind of baffled me a little bit that these are people who they're not comic creators. They're vendors. They're making stuff. They're making soap, nerdy soap. They're making jewelry, lots and lots of jewelry. I don't own any jewelry, but some people do. I don't know why. But engage people, engage. It's like at Hot Comics. We came in, the guy went, hi. And then, I'm wandering around. You guys were gone for, I don't know, a half hour. Guy didn't say word one to me. Not a thing. And I bet when we left, he was like, ooh, wonder why they didn't buy anything. Well, you know what? I'm in your shop. Sell stuff. It's kind of what it's all about. One of the oldest comic controversies on the planet has bubbled up again, Joe.
Oh, polyethylene or polyurethane for comic bag protection?
No.
Neither, folks. They both would deteriorate the bag. Mylar or Mylites is the way to go. They're insanely expensive, but they will not turn yellow over time, and they will not degrade the book. That was the beauty of the whole Death of Superman and all this polybag goofy stuff where the comic was inside the bag. Yeah, I'm going to sit on that in about 10 years, 20, 30 years. We'll have me a retirement fund. Nope, you're going to have a pile of yellow crap. Take a piece of newspaper, put it in a baggie, put it in the sun. That's essentially what's happening in slow motion. So, again, if you're going to, every 10 years, you'd probably have to replace your bags. And it's probably a good idea to look at those books if you haven't in 10 years, because they might be, I don't know, there might be silverfish in them, mice infested. They may suck. You might want to get rid of them. But, if you're going to do that, fine. Even now when I dig through my stuff, I come across bags and you pull them apart. Oh, I think it's time to replace those, but the board's fine. Why? Well, it's kind of melded into the paper, but. So, yeah, acid-free boards, Mylites and Mylar. Expensive, but worth it.
Anymore, with the cheap comic bags that they used to sell, it's better for your comics if you don't put them in those at all.
True.
It's better not to bag your comics than to bag them in that.
Keep them in a dark, dry location. That's better than, like you said, bagging them.
No, over the weekend on the fire-breathing Twitter machine, Tony S. Daniel, who's the artist on Batman, right? Is he the Batman artist, the Batman writer?
I don't read it.
Oh, let's see. Yeah, Tony Daniels, he's a writer-artist, and he has worked on Batman, he has worked on Detective Comics, he's worked on Action Comics, he's currently did Superman Wonder Woman, currently doing Deathstroke, put out a tweet that said, you know what drives me nuts? When there's a comic promoted on Twitter and there's no mention of the artist. Retweet if you agree. And he says that, the artist is important. Superman Wonder Woman was given an Excelsior Award and only the writer was mentioned. That's what's wrong with comics today. And he started going on and on about how artists don't get enough credit, which that part I agree with. I have no problem with that part. I think when you promote a book, promote the writer and the artist. Completely agree. But then it got into the artists are far more important. And Greg Capullo, who's the artist on Batman, that's why I thought Batman. Without the artist, there's no comic. We are the most vital part of a comic.
No.
And it became the typical argument of who is more important, the writer or the artist.
Well, you know my answer.
I'm here to let people know.
You know my answer.
My opinion.
Okay, let's hear Cory's opinion.
My opinion. You know who's more important, the writer or the artist? Neither one.
Nope.
The person who's the most important is the editor who hires them both and pays them. Because without that, you're not going to get a comic. Now, another big part of it is that back in the 30s and 40s, when they started doing comics for DC and Timely and all that, they started kind of the assembly line. This person's going to write it. This person's going to draw it. This person's going to ink it. This person's going to letter it. This person's going to color it. This person's going to do that. And they broke down the different parts of comic making. Because before that, most comic strips were done by someone who did the writing and the art. But if you try to say, no, you don't need a writer to do a comic, well, yeah, somebody's writing it. Even if the artist is writing it, somebody's writing it. And back in the late 80s, early 90s, a lot of the Image guys, one of the reasons they formed Image is because they felt they weren't getting enough credit, that the writer had too much power and control. They wanted to write the comics, and they wanted to draw the comics, and they thought the artist was more important.
Well, and to be fair, they were pretty much told by Marvel, you're not important, the characters are.
Well, that was after they left. What they were told while they were at Marvel was, look, draw what you're told to draw. Come on, art monkey. Now, there were some editors who swang too far the other way. One of the problems with the X-Men in the late 90s and, well, in the early 90s was that they would give the artist a script and the artist would go, I'm just going to draw what I want. There you go. Try to make sense of this shit. And the editors were like, I don't know, this guy's a superstar artist. We can't tell him to do what we can't order him around. If you look at early 90s comics up until about, 95, 96, each page is a poster. There's no storytelling. It's, okay, here's a big drawing of Wolverine and then some women's asses in small panels on the other side. It's because the artist would draw it in a way that they knew would sell at a convention. Well, I could sell this original art page for $700 because it's a big full-page drawing of Wolverine. So the pendulum swung way too far one way. And there are a lot of people who feel that the pendulum has swung way too far to the writers now.
I do remember one thing about that era. You know, you were incensed a lot about Image because it wasn't that, well, we're doing this for creator rights. We're doing this for this. The Image boys, they would hire on guys who drew like them, pay them, what was it, like $3,000 a page? Astronomical rate. More money than these boys probably ever made doing a whole issue at Marvel or DC. But they didn't get their art back. They got the Image kept the art, but on the hindsight, they got a ton of money for it. And
they would get a lot of money up front.
Oh yeah.
If you worked for Liefeld or you worked for the main
Todd
studios
eventually,
that happened.
I think a lot of them except for Larson ended up trying to make studios of books. I mean,
yes,
tons of
Jim
wild
did it. God, who was the Top Cow guy?
Oh, Silvestri.
And they would get these young guys. They would just go to conventions, and people who drew like them, they'd hire them. And maybe they would get their name in the book, and maybe they wouldn't. But they would get a huge page rate. Yeah, that's great. They wouldn't get their art back. They wouldn't get credit in the book. They would have no creators' rights. They would have no rights at all. No reprint fees, no royalties. If they created a character, it was owned by the person who owned the studio. It was very much like in the 40s. An Image had been founded on creators' rights. And we found out that it's only the rights of the 6 creators who formed it. As Tom McFarlane found out, you can't say that you're going to give somebody rights and then not give them the rights legally.
Mm-hmm.
Neil Gaiman got a lot of money out of Todd McFarlane because Todd McFarlane said, no, you don't have the rights to that. I own everything. You don't get reprint fees. You don't get this. You don't get this. You don't get this. And one of the big problems was that they had a handshake agreement, a verbal agreement. Joe, what's a verbal agreement worth?
Well, apparently, whatever Neil got out of it.
Well, he got enough to untangle the rights to Miracle Man and Angela.
Yeah.
But now people say that it swung too far the other way, where the writers have too much control. And of course, you're going to want that happy medium. And I personally think that we do have a good happy medium now because the artists are telling the stories. Are they getting enough credit? I think it depends. I think at DC, nobody's getting enough credit because they think of the creators as interchangeable cogs, unless you're, the high stratified folk. But I've seen where they've changed artists in the middle of an issue and they don't note it. I've seen where a writer will turn in a story and someone else gets the credit for it. Hi, J. Michael Straczynski. Hi, how are you? Hi, how you doing? Artists will be miscredited. It's a merging of the two. Without the art, it's a novel. Without the story, it's a pinup book. But in the end, the person who has the most say and the most credit is the editor, who's the one who says, this is what you do. I approve this. I approve this. I approve this. I approve this. And the editor's kind of behind the scenes. Without an artist, there's no pictures. Without an editor, there's no check. I will say at Marvel's very writer-driven, but let's also remember that Marvel became very writer-driven when they had their first artist as editor-in-chief, Joe Quesada. In a perfect world, we'd have a lot more writer-artists. But there are a lot of artists who really, and they'll say, I don't know how to put together a story. And there are more and more writers who at least know the basics of art. I've seen Mike Barron actually draws out his scripts. Brian Michael Bendis was an artist for the longest time. There are a few other people. Jonathan Hickman is an artist.
I always tell the story of when we were at Dreamhaven to see Neil Gaiman back when, like, maybe 150 people, maybe less, would show up. You could actually talk with him. And I handed him my autograph book, expecting an autograph, and he drew a really sweet picture of Morpheus. And everybody was like, oh. And everybody thought, we didn't know you could draw. He goes, well, yeah, sometimes I'll draw out the script to get the artist an idea of what I'm trying to go for. Would you ever think of doing your own of Sandman? Oh, no, I'm not that good an artist. We're all like, oh, we disagreed. I think I was at Dreamhaven.
Yeah, it was at Dreamhaven.
I was back at the store in it was Dinkytown at the time, wasn't it?
Yep, we went down to the Dinkytown store.
Just like saying Dinky.
But it's one of those things that people have this argument all the time, and it's not like it ever resolves itself.
No, it's like you said, it's an opinion. And my opinion, to finish it up, the one who matters, the retailer. Because...
Well, of course, you're a retailer.
No, but as we talked about before, the retailer buys the book non-returnable, period. If he buys something and customers don't want it, he's stuck with it. He doesn't get backsies. He doesn't get the return. If he's lucky, he'll blow them off. Hell, that's why quarter boxes exist. You know, even the ultimate reader doesn't matter, because if the retailer doesn't buy it, he won't even see it. You know, we go over the previews catalog every so often, and even going to shows, I saw even like Dan had his own comic book. And I'll talk about this a little bit later. The retailer pretty much is the end product, especially for anything coming out of Diamond Comics. You know, it's a little different now because, as we saw with, I can't pronounce his last name, Doug Asowitz with Arsenic Lullaby. When he was out of the catalog, he ended up doing a Kickstarter. And even he says, you know, one-on-one sales, convention sales aren't enough to keep me in business. But now he was able to work a different model. And I think you're seeing a lot of people with Kickstarter and with Comicology and all these other, they're working different models before they actually can get to the print model. And I'm not worried about comics per se, because back in was it the 80s or maybe I think it had to be the 80s. Somebody was asking Will Eisner, well, what do you think about the decline of comics? Things are going down. And he says, comics will never decline. Oh, sure, Batman, Superman, Spider-Man may go down and up, but there'll always be somebody somewhere wanting to do comics. The industry will be fine. And I'm paraphrasing him very loosely, but I think that's exactly what's kind of going on today.
If you listen to the interview I did with Josh Blaylock last week, it was a two-parter, Josh Blaylock of Devil's Due Publications. A few things. And I'm not doing this to toot my own horn, but I'm doing it to talk about things that you and I have talked about. When he got G.I. Joe, what he had to do was, okay, he had to pay this much money up front, and he would pay this much in royalties. So it was this much against these royalties. and everything past that he got to keep. And he talks about how, much like me, he has no idea how people are making money off licenses anymore. But the other thing he talks about is how he's using a 3-prong approach. He's not going to abandon Diamond, because Diamond is how you get into stores. And it's something that I have talked about a lot, where 10, 15 years ago, the number 300 book was selling 850 copies. Now it's selling 4,500 copies. There is a long tail to comics. And if you are a small publisher and you know what you're doing, you can get better sales than you could have 10 years ago. He does Kickstarter for the bigger things because that's a global thing, and he can really get a good idea of what's popular and what people want. But he also, Devil's Due has been at our convention for a long time. He goes to a lot of conventions because there are people who come to the convention to buy his stuff. They don't go to comic shops. When San Diego gets 150,000 people and the average DC book sells 35,000, that 150,000 people aren't going to comic shops in the California area. He goes to conventions and he says the big thing is the omnibuses, the big thick books, they sell there. And he was talking about the hack slash omnibuses. He said, it doesn't matter how many I bring. By the time I go home, they're all gone.
And they're heavy.
Because it's people come to the shows to buy books now. People are buying stuff online. The 4th prong, the digital prong, he said is not that big for him. Which surprised me. And he talked about the same thing you talked about, how ebook sales are dropping. And I've actually looked into it. One of the reasons, you want to know the big reason why ebook sales are dropping according to the ebook publishers?
Why is that?
It used to be, here's this book that's $30, it's a hardcover, or $9.99 as a ebook. Well, about a year ago, the publishers, we're not making enough money. Make the ebooks cost as much as the hardcover books. And that's when ebook sales started to drop. If you triple your prices, people don't buy as much.
Or if they're the same.
What a surprise!
Yeah, I'm shocked.
He talked about how, Marvel and DC, their digital books are $2.99 and $3.99, and they're not selling that well. But when he prices his stuff at 99 cents on Comixology, it sells. Because people go, I'll buy that for $1. I'll buy it for $1. Boom, boom, boom. At conventions, here's a $35 book I could get for $25. I'm going to buy it there. And I can buy it from the publisher. Oh, and the guy who did it, he's going to be right there. He can autograph it. I don't know how we got to this from writers and artists, but the retailers.
Yes.
One of the things the retailers are fighting against is the internet stuff. And it's like we talked about with the Geek Expo and going to the shops yesterday. You got to engage your customer. Because if you're not going to engage me, I can buy this online. It'll show up at my house and it's cheaper. Why do I go to your shop? I go to your shop to see stuff. And if I'm there, I have money in my pocket. You want to get it. They don't call it gambling in Vegas, Joe. Do you know what they call when somebody comes in? They don't call it gambling. What do they call it?
Best buying.
Extraction. When you go into a casino, they want to extract your money from your wallet. When you're a retailer, and this sounds horrible, but you should be trying to get the money out of that person's wallet into your store. When you're at a convention, if you're an artist, you should be trying to get that person to pick up your stuff. The minute they pick up your stuff, you should be talking about how good it is and doing your sales pitch. You need to have your elevator pitch. The guys at Future Dude, every time they're at the convention, I buy something from them. You know why? Because when I go over to their booth and they start looking around, he's saying, oh, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? What kind of stuff do you like? Oh, this is like that. Oh, we got a movie. Here's what boom, boom, boom. They know what they're doing. They came from outside comics. And they're bringing sales techniques in too many times you've got the artists, like I said, they're sitting at their booth, they're staring at their shoes, or they're sketching their next issue because they're bored and nobody's come by. But when somebody comes by, they don't put the pencil down, they just keep sketching. The other thing about credit, and this is one of those things that drives me crazy when I hear about how Stan Lee didn't give Jack Kirby enough credit. Joe, can you pick up a comic from the 50s or even a DC comic from the 60s and tell me what the credits say?
Not too often.
You know why? Because there weren't any goddamn credits. Even the EC books, which gave credit to the artist would sign the splash page, or on the letters page they would say, oh, by the way, story number 2 was drawn by Jack Davis, and story number 3 was drawn by Wally Wood, and story number 4 was drawn by Al Feldstein. It wasn't a written by Al Feldstein, drawn by Wally Wood, colored by Marie Severin, lettered by Leroy Lettering. Stan is the one who said we needed credits. I think it has become now where the creators drive the sales, which is good for the creators, but it's also bad because if you're an unknown, people are going to go, I don't know who this guy is. Yeah. Why should I buy Captain America by Joe Brony? I don't know who he is.
I know Brony. Yeah. He's a good guy. Bobby Heenan mentions him all the time.
Finally, someone picked up my reference.
No, I pick it up. I just let it slide.
You just ignore it.
All right. Well, yeah, pretty much.
But I'm tired of the argument, too.
Boring.
And I remember when the argument first came up, and name withheld. Joe, who was name withheld? And do you know the story of name withheld?
I don't, but I think Eric Larson knows who he is.
Peter David wrote a column back in the Comic Buyer's Guide before we had internet chat rooms and Facebooks and message boards.
Because, the thing with the internet is we can discover things like Civil War II is confirmed. Bendis is writing it. And SWAT Cats is making a comeback after 22 years. I mean, that's...
In POG form?
The beauty... Oh, probably. There'll be media tie-ins.
But Peter David wrote a column about how, yes, artists are important, but the writer is the one who comes up with the original idea. And at Marvel, at the time, that's how it worked. Especially Marvel in the 80s, when the editors were writing books for other editors. When I was getting near the end of college, and I was writing to Marvel, sending story ideas, I would get letters back, and Fabian Nicieza, one of the nicest guys I've ever met, I'm not a huge fan of his writing, but he's a really nice guy, said, look, if you really want to be a writer at Marvel, you need to come in and get an internship. Then you need to push for an assistant editorship. And when you're showing up every day, that's when you get your break, because it's like, oh crap, we don't have a story for this book. Anybody got an idea for a comic that is, we need to get a script to the artist by Friday? Scott Lobdell got a job in comics because he went by Marvel's office every day and dropped off a new plot. Every day. Here's an 8-page plot for this character. Here's an 8-page plot for this character. And it was all obscure characters that they needed for Marvel Comics Presents, because it's, oh crap, we haven't used Captain Ultra for 10 years. We got to use him soon or we're going to lose the copyright. Not that anybody gave a shit about Captain Ultra. But he turns in work every day. He gets stuff done on time. And Eric Larson wrote to Comic Buyer's Guide, ripping him a new asshole. But because he was working at Marvel and didn't want to get fired by the editors who were writers, name withheld.
Upon request.
And the argument went for months.
Whereas nowadays it'd be over with in minutes.
Oh no, the Twitter war is still going on. Kurt Busiek got in and he kind of was like the school teacher who said, writers are important, that's where the story is. The writer doesn't have to be somebody who's sitting at a typewriter. And some of the artists were like, well, there are silent comics, and they were done by the artist, and Busiek said, it's still a story. The artist still came up with the story. You don't understand. The story is what the comic is about. The visuals and everything are there, but you have to have a story. And there's a writer who does that story, even if the writer is the artist. And, of course, someone said, well, you can't do a comic without art. And, of course, there's John Byrne's Alpha Flight issue.
Yeah.
where it's just, well, it's a snowbird fighting Wendigo in a snowstorm. It's the melding of the two that matters. And to say that one is more important than the other, it depends on the person reading the comic. George Perez has drawn some really shitty books that I can't read. They're really bad. He does a really nice job of drawing them, but they're terrible and they're unreadable. If Alan Moore writes a comic that's drawn like shit, I'm still going to read it. There are other people who are the opposite. Who, well, if George Perez is going to draw it, I'm going to buy it and I'm going to enjoy it and I don't care who writes it. Alan Moore, oh man, that's bad art. Gruber's like that. If Gruber doesn't like the art, it doesn't matter who's writing it. Where do you land on that spectrum, Joe?
I'm probably more, I'm both, because I look at artists that I really enjoy, and if I see they're doing a work, I will consider it. If I see a writer doing a work, even if it's on a character I'm not interested in, or if it's on something that has nothing to do with superheroes, I'll consider it. To me, you have to be almost established, or there has to be some chatter going on somewhere. Like we were talking about the Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur,
Yeah.
Because of the outrage. Okay, you got my sale. I got to check this out. So I do recall when the second to last story arc of Sandman was starting. And oh, help me, I can't remember the artist.
Let me take a look here.
Okay. All I remember is...
I'll go to the Strotron 3000.
All right.
Strotron 3000.
Teacher told me I would never get paid to stare out a window all day, but then I became a truck driver. I guess I won that round. No, that's not it. Let's see.
Oh, this is weird where they don't list the artist or everything.
All right, hang on a second.
Okay, the Kindly Ones was actually drawn by
I'm trying to find my 3D DD. Let's see.
Okay, the Kindly Ones,
Hempel.
which was
Mark Hempel.
Hempel did one issue of that.
It was right on my shelf all along.
Hempel, Richard Case, Disraeli, Teddy Christensen, Glenn Dillon, Charles Vest, Dean Ormson, and Kevin Nolan. It says here It was colored by Danny Vazzo. I'm about to spill some beans, Joe.
Ooh,
Are you ready?
That.
Are you ready?
Okay, hang on, let me pull over. Okay.
Danny Vazzo didn't touch any of those pages. It was his wife, Stephanie Vazzo, who's now friend of the show, Stephanie Kofel.
Woohoo! That's a good shout-out. However, having marginally remembered the intricacies of Sandman, something I didn't realize until I reread the graphic novels, page 1 to last page, a lot of it went, especially with Hempel's art, I didn't get it because they would say the names of the character, but I didn't catch who it was because his art was so different from everybody else. And I wasn't the first person to complain about that because, again, people, his art's so different, I don't know who people are. Well, when I went back and read it, as opposed to just kind of superficially looking at the pictures, I understood who was who, and the story was much better. That was probably the last time I think I recall where the art took such a right turn that it threw me trying to read the story. But I got better.
I think with a lot of books like that, Invisibles, the last story arc, I think the last couple issues, they actually had them redrawn for the trade paperback because the artist had bungled the pages and you couldn't quite follow it as well as you should. I also think it depends on what you're looking for in your comics. If you're looking for story, you're going to be drawn to comics that are more writer-driven. If you're looking for, art, you're going to look more for the stuff that looks the way you like, and the story won't matter as much. And for all the talk about in the 80s about how the artists were in charge and the artists didn't need writers, pick up some of those artist-driven books. It's like they wrote a goddamn novel. It's like, Todd McFarlane spawned page after page after page of this endless dialogue. Or Wildcats by Jim Lee. Oh, everybody's talking all the time. Huge blocks of text.
Which I don't mind.
I do if the artist is just either doing an info dump or they're telling you what you're seeing, which always amazed me about the Image stuff. Here are these artists who know the art will tell the story, and they were as bad as the 60s DC where, okay, we're going to have Blood Basher jumping off a roof. The panel, Blood Basher jumps off a roof. And then a dialogue panel. Look, it's Blood Basher jumping off a roof. Yeah. People who are trained in writing weren't doing that anymore. It's just you people. Stop it.
Can I?
Please stop it.
I have a confession to make.
Again?
Yeah. As we are recording this, it's December 5th. No, start over.
No, it's December 7th.
Well, see, it's a
time traveler.
It's a disturbing memory because 36 years ago today, I had one of the best naps I ever had. It was during the slow journey through V'ger during Star Trek.
Star Trek the motion picture.
I woke up when a local news crew was in the theater filming a story about Star Trek's return. I was in the back row of Harmar, and I went by myself, as I was wont to do in those days, and took a bus ride up, got a ticket, one of the last seats in, and promptly, when they started that journey, I fell asleep. And then all of a sudden the doors open, the bright light come in, and here we are filming the return of Star Trek. And I'm like, okay.
What?
So I woke up for the end. Whew, I'm glad I got that off my chest. Because, of course, reports are now that the Star Trek Beyond trailer will run with Star Wars The Force Awakens, of which I have tickets to. So I'll be able to give you my review on it when we come up to the next podcast.
Oh, okay.
Well, whenever we got 2 weeks. One more podcast and then Star Trek Wars. Sure.
Star Trek Wars.
SWAT Cats.
SWAT Cats.
MST 3000.
You know who doesn't put you to sleep? These guys, our sponsors.
Ooh.
That's right. Solitaire Rose Productions has sponsors. And our first sponsor is the one who's been with us since day one, and that's DreamHost.com. DreamHost.com is the best web host in the whole known universe, bar none. Go to DreamHost.com, enter the code CRAZY, get $20 off your first year. How amazing is that? Our second sponsor is the Dollar Shave Club. I get amazing razors delivered from the Dollar Shave Club just for a few bucks, and I always shave with a fresh blade. Does this make me a genius? Of course it does. Now, if you use the website shave.by/C19DC, those of us here at Solitaire Rose Productions will get to wet our beak a little. We get a little piece of that, and that's what ads are all about. Our other sponsor is Gray's. Gray's delivers great healthy snacks to you weekly, bi-weekly, once a month, however you'd like. You can choose the kind of snacks you want. They're all amazing. They're all healthy. They're all good. And your first and fifth boxes are free if you use the code CORYS3R5. We love to hear from you, our fans, our beloved fans. Without you, there's no us, because then we're just talking to ourselves, and Lord knows I spent long enough doing that. You can email us at our brand spanking new email address at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. You can call us and leave a message, and we will play your message on the air. And that number is 952-856 0519. We have us a webpage that is at Crazy Comics, KRAYZCOMIX.solitairerose.com. Over there, you'll see some of our new sponsors and our brand spanking new Amazon store, so go check that out. We are also on the Facebooks. We're all over the place. We want to hear from you. If you would like to advertise on Crazy Comics and Stories or any of the other Solitaire Rose podcasts, go ahead, email us at solitaireroseproduction@gmail.com. Subject, advertising. If you have a comic you would like us to review, it's the same Gmail account. Just instead of advertising, put review. Or if you'd like to be a guest on Solitaire Rose Radio or Solo Joe, go ahead and email us at that same address with the subject line guest. These here podcasts come to you free because of our sponsors, so please go visit them. Crazy Comics and Stories comes to you free every week. Every Monday, we've got a new episode, and usually we have it up by Sunday night. It's also available on the YouTubes. It's available on the Pocket Cast, on the Stitcher, on the iTunes. It's all over the place. So go ahead, subscribe, tell your friends, tell every human being you know about Crazy Comics and Stories. Solitaire Rose Radio is a little more infrequent. It comes out about every 2 weeks. And Solitaire Rose Novelcast comes out every other Thursday. So get ready. The Solitaire Rose Podcast Network is growing. Join us. Be on board. Become a fan. Become a listener. Thank you.
And we're coming up next week. When this drops next week, we're recording the Festivus episode. It's going to be jam-packed. It's going to be guest-filled.
It has to be, because I got nothing to Festivus about except Festivus itself.
Oh, don't worry. Don't worry. There will be a lot of grievances. And if you want to be part of the show, back in the ads, it tells you how you can contact us. So contact us with your Festivus grievances.
I'm telling you, I'm going to bring back all my old jokes faster than Oprah on a baked ham.
Joe's a canned ham.
No, she likes baked hams. She's not into canned. When you're that rich, she could have people baking her hams 24/7.
The joke is a canned ham.
No. Baked. I know what's a joke. I know what. Oh, what are you talking about? I had people calling up, threatening me never to use that joke again. And now,
it was just one person.
257 episodes, you're finally telling me no, you've been having it all wrong. Sorry, this joke is mine. Up yours, Bart Simpson. Now, I have a question and a comment.
Okay.
I'll start with the comment. On my eBay site, Crazy, Krayz, I've started a new thing where I am blowing out old comics at 99 cents. Blowing them out. 99 cents. This isn't an auction. This is you just buy it now. So when you check it out, go to the store, check out the section, see what you think. But I also have a question for you. Cory, can you access my eBay store fairly quick, or would it take some doing?
No, I've got it right here on the website.
Excellent.
Let's see.
Stores.ebay.com/crazy comics and stuff.
Or ebay.com/USR/crazy. Wow. You have no negative or neutral reviews.
No.
Awesome product.
I tend to eliminate those. Okay, go to the little door icon, because that leads you to my actual store.
There you go. Visit store.
Ding-diddling. Hey, how you doing? Can I sell you some comics? Hey, get the fuck out. Oh, sorry.
All good things come to an end. Due to a promotion at work, I can no longer run an eBay store. To share the good news, I'm marking down my store 50% off.
Read the sentence above it. FYI, ignore the all good things message below. eBay's mistake.
And how long has that mistake been there?
Since I reopened the store. Because I closed it when I went on the road. Did we podcast before I was on the road or after?
After.
So I closed the store, got ready to go on the road, and when I reopened the store, that helpful banner was still there, and it refuses to go away. But that's not what I wanted.
Emailed or contacted Facebook to say, hey, fix this, God damn it.
well, not Facebook, but I tried eBay, but they were non-responsive. It's much like
That's why you should try Facebook.
No, I need you to look at the store categories, comic books.
Okay.
I have it in 4
You
sections.
got a whole bunch of comics.
I does. DC, Image, Marvel, other publishers.
Okay.
The question for you, and I suppose this is an Ask the Strode if you want to be official, what other publishers do you think I should divide that into?
I think you should go with the publishers who are the featured publishers in the Diamond catalog. And that would be Image, Dark Horse, and IDW.
IDW. All right. Because actually, when I look at what I have more Dynamite variants, and after that, underneath it breaks down into Dell Gold Key, things like that. Because that was the only place I was looking at that I couldn't quite figure out. Should I divide it up into other publishers? And then, of course, right on top, you see the friendly 99-cent comics. So there, we've wrapped that up in a nice little ball.
And I didn't even have to say what's going on what's happening on the eBays.
Well, the big thing was the 99 centers. I'm just going to start blowing some of them out. And I wanted to get your opinion on what other publishers are worthy of a separate category. I've run across a couple stores where they had everybody by publisher, but the problem is that those had to have been real comic shops as opposed to me just blowing out my comic collection, because they tend to have a lot of the newer stuff. And it starts to break down when you have Golden Age and Silver Age and the Dell Gold Key runs, because it's like, Golden Age is tough because almost just the plethora of different publishers, and some of them were imprints of other publishers. Do you put Timely Comics under Old
Marvel.
Key Timely, or do you put them under Marvel? Either way, I don't think it ultimately matters, because most people when they eBay, they just go right to the search engine and type in, I would like to find a Red Sonja Goes East Red Foil edition. That's $30 on eBay, but hey, look, Crazy's got it for less. What a nice guy. I think I'll buy it from him.
What a mensch.
What a mensch.
Any other Ask the Strodes?
Nope, that's pretty much it.
All right. So you know what that means.
What?
It's time for everybody's favorite feature.
It is?
No, not what is Cory eating this week. It's Freaking and Geeking. Joe, what are you freaking on? What's bugging you? What's bothering you? What has crawled up your butt and died?
Well, you tell me, because you were sitting next to me at the Golden Expo.
Oh, my God, I don't know what crawled up your butt and
then
died,
they
but
suggested
it died a long time ago.
Then they're saying, hey, let's go to Burger King. Yeah, let's just keep feeding the beast within. As I was eBaying earlier today, this is what hit me. The golden age of self-publishing is over. The reason I say that, I consider the golden age of self-publishing to be the 80s and into the 90s. There was a time you used to be able to print a copy, however you made it. We're not going to get into the writing artist debate again. You published yourself a comic book, and then you solicited Diamond to get in. And in the 80s, 9 times out of 10, you probably got in. You probably got in there. You probably got in Advanced Comics. You probably got in Heroes World. Any number of regional ones. That ain't going to happen anymore. I don't see a lot of people self-publishing getting into the Diamond catalog that weren't already self-publishing to begin with. I don't see the next generation, Cerebus, Bone, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, ElfQuest, Thieves and Kings, A Distant Soil. None of those books which popped up in the 80s and 90s, they are not going to pop up again, because I don't see them getting into Diamond Comics. I don't see people rushing out to buy them in case they're the next big thing. You might hit gold. Again, I think Kirkman was already established with Invincibles. I don't know what he did.
No, with Battle Pope.
Battle Pope? Oh my gosh, I ran across a copy of that. Wow, I don't know where it is, but I'll dig it up for next week. But I don't see that happening anymore where I'm going to, as a retailer, be able to pick up Diamond Comics and go, hey, I think I'll buy this and give it a shot. Or somebody might send me their comic and then I'll just buy it through Diamond without having to buying it direct. A lot of the people, I came across this as I was slowly putzing on my eBay store. And I ran across 2 titles that, by the way, if you want to buy, are currently in the 99-cent area. Thieves and Kings #1 and Box Office Poison #1. And at the time, they were fairly sought-after books to the point where I would actually go through cold cut distribution and make sure I had current printings in my box. And I was selling that cover price. Same thing with Bone. Same thing with Cerebus. But it's not there anymore. And I think that was something we talked about and something I was alluding to. And you talked about it with the 4 different things you do now. The golden age is over. It's pretty much done. I don't know if it died when Bone went to Image or started publishing through Scholastic, or Cerebus finished or whatever. Again, it's not something I thought about. I just kind of felt a little sadness because all these books that I grew up reading in the 80s and I bought and maintained in my store in the 90s, they're just not being published now. And if they do happen to come back, nobody cares. They give it a collective yawn.
Here's my counter to that, Joe. Do I think that they're self-publishing? No, I think self-publishing, you're right, is slowly going away. There are a few people who are still trying it, but really, because there's so much involved now, comics are not, you know what, if I print up a flyer and send it to Diamond and pay them to ship it to all the comic shops and put an ad in Diamond, it's going to sell. Those days are done. Publishing is far more complicated now. Comics are a bigger business now. So instead, you have someone like Ed Brubaker. He calls himself a self-publisher. You know why? He packages his books himself. Image is the one who handles the printing and distribution. They send him a bill. It comes out of his royalties. He's the one who decides this issue's going to sell. I'm going to do this many issues of this as a trade paperback. This is this. Now, Image can say, no, your sales aren't good enough for you to do A, B, or C. Or they can come to you and go, your sales are so low that you're not going to make money, therefore we're not going to publish you. But the people who would have been self-publishing 20 years ago are now going through Image, which is why Image is the most exciting publisher. You have these people who will start at Image, kind of get noticed, make their name, go to Marvel, go to DC, become names, and then come back to Image. Greg Rucka's at Image. Ed Brubaker's at Image. Jonathan Hickman's going back to Image. Where did Jonathan Hickman come from? He did a book called Nightly News at Image. He did Pax Romana at Image. He did some other stuff at Image. Marvel picked him up. He had big runs on the Fantastic Four, on Secret Warriors, on the Avengers, on the Ultimates, and now he's back at Image doing self-published stuff. Image is the distributor. They're the packager.
So basically, Image is like a pseudo distributor.
Right, except they also handle the publishing and the advertising, and you pay them to take care of the publishing and the shipping and all that. So rather than what Dave Sim did, where he did all of that himself, except he also would have someone in the, his wife did it for a while, and then he did it, and now it's nope, I'm through Image. Image handles all that. And now who was it talked about? The guy who does minimum wage talked about it. It's, I need to sell a certain number of copies for Image to continue to put out the book. I draw it, I give it to them, I give them the digital file, they send it to the publisher, they print it, they take the orders, they do all that work, and they send me a bill for that.
See, and I will also add to that you are still going to have people who will do traditional self-publishing. And if they're lucky, they'll run across a store like The Source or Jeff Hanley's Universe that across from the Empire State Building, that actually had a wall of, self-published comics. People that you'll see at comic conventions. These are probably people who are doing this for the love of comics versus someone trying to make a living off it. And these are the people we see at cons, and these are the people who we like to interview when we do our this here podcast at the cons that are coming up. Speaking of which, to finish out freaking, is there any more? Do we have any more interviews for the MCBA, or did you finally slog through all of them?
There were a number of them where the audio was so bad they were unsalvageable.
So if we didn't use yours, we bad. Because we were learning it, and one of them I know the guy who does Elvis.
No, that one's in there.
Oh, it did go in, because that was one where we had
both interviews with him.
Oh, good, because I had the mic set wrong.
Yeah,
and I think our advantage there was it was so quiet at the time that we were able to pick him up okay.
Len Straszewski was one that it was a half-hour interview, and he talked about his time on Justice Society, and he talked about what went on with the Ultraverse, but he talked about transitioning from comics to academia, and I thought it was a really good interview, and I'm listening to it, and I'm doing everything I can to salvage it, but there are people ringing bells in the background, there's Lisa yelling in the background, the background noise was so strong, and the microphone, we didn't have it set right. I don't know what went on with that.
Yeah, it was something with that and Audacity, because we got it right at Geek Expo.
Yeah, and I figured out how to work it at the Geek Expo, so everything was fine at there. We didn't have as many people, but we got some really good audio. I got a 45-minute conversation with Butch on team-ups. Okay, we started talking about team-ups, and okay.
So, apology, Len. We'll be talking to you at the next con.
That's right.
Remember what you said. We know you academician types. You don't forget nothing. Oh, Ryder again. I remember you from 101 goofing.
Ryder,
yeah. Again, I don't have much to freak about this week. I did get better. I did get out to the Geek Expo, so I feel pretty good. Cory, what are you freaking out? What's got you down in the dumps? What's got you more depressed than George Takei thinking about William Shatner?
Oh, no. Oh, no. I don't get depressed thinking about William Shatner.
I get it.
I laugh. I can't really say that I'm freaking about stuff. I do know that we're coming up on the end of the year, and I'm not a person who sets goals, and I've talked about this.
That's why my calendar has no more pages. Boy, I owe somebody an apology. I reamed him a new one. Where the hell's the rest of you? Cheated me? Never mind.
But we're coming up toward the end of the year, and I don't set goals. I have themes, and my theme this year was to kind of bring the podcast up another step. And I really think we have. I think the listeners are the ones who decide, but it feels like we're doing really good stuff. The solo podcast is really starting to get some attention. I've got some really cool people I'm interviewing over the next few months. The Novelcast has started. There are at least one other podcast starting next year. And we may be bringing in a podcast that I'm not doing to the network.
Cool. And I might even do a second one. I've still decided on that. Actually, to be fair, I got an idea, but it requires me going through hours and hours of cassette tapes of my radio show from the 1980s while I was in college. And I cannot fast forward through them because what I'm looking for are different ads and bits we did related to comics. So I'm working on it. It's just going to take a while. Or maybe I'll just drag my computer over and interview Gruber. One of the two. Something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as with every year, I get to the end of the year, and there's all this stuff that I wish I would have had time to do. So I'm getting that kind of little melancholia thing going.
Hey, I got you pie at the Geek Expo. What else did you want? I didn't get credit for that.
You got credit for that. I took a picture and everything.
Oh, okay, good. I feel better.
There.
Okay, one off my Festivus credit.
The holidays are coming up, and because of my shitty job situation, I'm probably going to have to work. I know I have to work the day before and the day after, and I may actually have to work on Christmas, which I've done a lot of the time. But I'm really starting to get that, I'm tired of working every holiday. I'm tired of working holidays, and then I'm tired of coming home to just the cat. And I don't talk about this a lot on the podcast, and I do like living alone because I like it. But there are times when it's just you'd really like to come home to somebody who actually gives a shit about whether you're alive or not. And I thought things were going to change this year. I thought that things were going to be different this year. But really, as we get to the end of the year, my work situation is actually worse than it was at the beginning of the year. And my job upsets me a lot more. The end of last year, my job was going away, but I was very happy with what I'm doing. I'm not happy with my full-time job. I'm not happy when I go to work. I'm not happy doing the work. And I've talked about it in the past where I'm sending out all these resumes and I go in. I had an interview about 3 weeks ago. And during the interview, I would ask a question. They go, we were just talking about that just a couple of days ago and blah, blah, blah. And then they'd ask a question and I would talk about it. And they go, wow, that's exactly what we want to do. And then, 2 weeks later, sorry, we went with someone else. So it's just been a year of getting your hopes up and having them dashed, and getting your hopes up and having them dashed, getting your hopes up and having them dashed. And while I understand other people have wonderful lives and they enjoy their time, there are times when it's a Saturday night and Doctor Who's over and it's like, yeah, I wish I had more to talk to than just a goddamn cat. So, and it'll pass after the holidays are over, but every so often I just kind of get that So, Joe, pull me out of this spiral of depression and tell me what you're geeking on.
I got nothing. I had one of the weeks.
No, there's the sad music. Cory's going into the spiral of depression.
See, I had one of those weeks like you did where I didn't really get much done. So I just, I did read back issue number 82, which was just a flashback of immense proportion because they dealt with Bronze Age events such as Avengers versus Defenders, JLA meeting JSA, Secret Wars, both 1 and 2, Crisis, Legends, Millennium, Invasion, Infinity Gauntlet. Oh, it was fun. Every time I read back issues or even Altered Heroes, I get the urge to run out and find all these issues and read them again. It was fun. That's all I got. What are you geeking on, Cory?
By the time you have listened...
I did have one more geeking.
Oh, okay.
And it was a freaking last year, and it's a geeking this year. Last year, when they aired Charlie Brown Christmas, they cut out a scene so they could fit all the commercials and everything into their little half-hour block. This year, they put the scene back, and not only did they expand Charlie Brown Christmas through the liberal placing of many commercials, but they also added on some pretty cool animations dealing with Christmas afterwards. So they had a whole hour of Charlie Brown Christmas. There was also a show before that dealing with the 50th anniversary of Charlie Brown's Christmas, which had a really cool bit of a 1962 documentary they did with Schultz to air that never did air. But it was kind of the thing that got Schultz introduced to the producer, who then later on decided, hey, let's do this Christmas thing. And, of course, it was snowing during the non-snowstorm we had. And good old dish cut out. So out of my nice hour history thing, which I absolutely love, I got maybe 20 minutes of it. But the Christmas itself was unaltered. So as opposed to the crappy Thanksgiving one they do where they have the classic and then they put this really bad one on afterwards to pan it out for a whole hour. So that was fun. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Cory, what are you geeking on? What's got you going? What's got you happy?
First off, by the time you have listened to this episode, I will have gone to see Piff the Magic Dragon perform his comedy act. He is a comedy magician who dresses in a dragon costume. Very dry sense of humor, really good magic. I'm really looking forward to seeing his show. So by the time that this is on the air, I will have seen it. I have not seen as many concerts and performances as I wanted to this year because I've had to work so much, but I'm slowly going to change that next year. The second thing is a Facebook thing. I have been sending friend requests to a lot of comic professionals because the show is gaining momentum, and I'm getting people who want to be interviewed. I'm getting people who are saying, hey, I see you have a podcast. I listened to a couple episodes. I liked it. Would you like to interview me? So we're lining up interviews for next year. Going to have some really interesting people, going to have some people who are kind of bigger names in comics, but I'm never going to get away from interviewing people who I think have cool stories. So, Solitaire Rose Radio is coming up on episode 50. God, who knows what we'll do? It's an anniversary. We try to do something on an anniversary. Comic-wise, I talked about that Tales from the Marvel Vault. I was able to get it for $4.99.
Dun, dun, dun.
And while I had those, they put them out as individual comics while I bought those. It's one of those where, okay, for $5, I'd like to have them in a book that I can put on my shelf just to pull down. You got Neil Volk's and Roger Stern doing an origin story for Doctor Strange, the day he first found the Sanctum Sanctorum. You got the Steve Ditko stuff. You've got a George Tuska story, probably the last story George Tuska drew, that was sitting around in the vaults at Marvel. So some fun stuff there. And I read a comic that I did not expect to be good. I did not expect it to be. It was one of those, Joe, when we talked about the all-new Marvel and we got to Vision, it's like, Vision? Who cares? I have read Vision #1, and it is one of the best of the all-new, all-different Marvel. It's very creepy, it's very strange, it's very good, and it's really thought-provoking. If you remember in that Avengers story, in the Avengers #0, where they set up all the new plot things, the Vision went to Scarlet Witch and said, I need to remove my emotions. So what he has done, he has separated his emotions from his memories. And he has created a wife and 2 children to understand what it's like to be more human. And he now is in Washington, D.C. He's a special liaison to the president, between the president and the Avengers. And it's really good. It was better than I expected. I was blown away by how good it is, and I cannot wait for the next issue. One of the things I've liked about the all-new to all-different Marvel is they're trying new stuff. They're trying different ideas in different formats, and it's really exciting. The season finale of Doctor Who aired, and I have liked all of the Doctor Who seasons since it came back. I know there are some people who bellyache about certain seasons by certain showrunners. I thought this season was one of the strongest they've had. And they took some chances, they played with things, they messed with things. This Doctor is more playful and yet more dangerous and serious than the previous Doctors. When this season is available for streaming, Joe, you're probably going to watch it all in one night.
I just buy it on DVD. I always like the extras.
Really good stuff. I have not watched a lot of TV. I was actually asked at work today about these 2 new series that are on, and I said, I have not started any series that started this fall. And he's like, oh, you're watching the old stuff. It's like, no, I'm just keeping up on the stuff that I'm watching. I said I watched the first episode of Into the Badlands. I think they're now up to episode 4, and I haven't seen it since. And then the last thing is kind of a sad geeking. Joe, you know of my love of the band Rush.
Yes.
Rush is probably my favorite rock band. I have seen them. I have not seen them as much as I would have liked, but since I moved to Minnesota, I have seen them every time they've come through town. There was even, I don't know, like 6-7 years ago when they came through, and then they were over in Madison, where I saw them in Minneapolis. Well, they were in St. Paul at the XL Center, and then I drove to Madison for the show the next night. Rush was here for their 40th anniversary tour. Really good concert. They did, we did all sorts of stuff. It was like almost a 4-hour show. Neil Peart has announced that he is now considering himself a former drummer. He said that his hands cannot take drumming anymore, that his wrists and his arms just can't handle the stress, can't handle the strain. So he considers himself a former drummer, which means that Rush, their last tour, which we kind of suspected would be their last. So Rush as a band has retired. This does not mean they won't come back, because Lord knows how many times did Mick Foley retire.
Bang, bang!
How many times has Terry Funk retired?
Never.
Oh, no. Butch saw him retire in 1994 at the Indian Center. That was a retirement match. He retired at least 4 times when he was at ECW. But it looks like the band Rush is gone, so I did get to see them on their final tour.
So you got that going for you.
Yep. Comic-wise, I will have read a lot more comics for next week because my schedule at the full-time job is finally normalized a bit. And while I have a lot of podcasts to mix, I'm only recording this one this week.
Well, I'm not counting the mystery one we did last night.
The mystery one is going to be held in abeyance.
Who's Vance?
Believe it or not, kids, you've listened to us blather on about funny books for an hour and a half.
By my count, 1 hour 42 minutes, but I suppose we'll have to edit that down.
Well, we have to edit out some of the stuff. We cut some of the stuff.
The pregnant pauses make us, if we ever ran the audio naked, you'd realize we really, there's like, oh, what are we going to talk about next? Oh, I don't. Oh, I got it. I know. But we edit that out.
Well, I tell you what.
It sounds smart.
Because of the Festivus episode, we will be recording that on Monday and then dropping it on Festivus, which is a Wednesday. So there won't be a lot of mixing on that one. That one's going to be about as raw as we get.
Yeah, I've got a whole bunch of dad jokes. I thought, oh shit.
God damn it. As we say every week, kids, the comics we like the least, we still like better than the comics that you like the most. Joe?
That's something new. My behavior and the way I think is the result of chemicals that go into my body. These chemicals include coffee, cigarette smoke, and peanut butter. Now, if you think I'm weird and you want to be weird too, then drink coffee, smoke cigarettes, and eat peanut butter. Frank Zappa. Cory, hit some music.